This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide relief to any person or entity adversely affected by some hardship caused by the strict interpretation of the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Hayes.
Here.
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 Here. Thank you. And thank you for coming to this meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals. Please be aware that this meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on television. First, I'll outline our procedures. A summary of the appeal is presented by staff, then the appellant will present its case. The board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chair. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may only do so after being sworn in. When testifying, each person must come forward to the podium, right here in the middle, after being recognized, speak into the microphone and state your name, address, and any affiliation to the case. All persons testifying will be limited to 4 minutes unless a board member requests additional time. All testimony is given to the board only. No comments or questions are to be directed to the appellant or anyone else in the audience. The board will only hear new, non-repetitive evidence or questions. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by following the testimony procedures and stating their support of the previous testimony. Now, will all persons who may give testimony this evening please stand? Raise your right hand and swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move it that we approve the agenda.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the floor. The secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Hager?
Aye.
Mr. Zine?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye. We went quicker on that last week, but I was advised that we need a formal motion and voting on that. Now, before we jump into the approval of last month's minutes, I think we need to, well, we can do the approval of the minutes and then make that announcement. Sure. Okay. Let's go to the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any changes?
Nope.
Any changes after the second submission? Right?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for our meeting on May 4th, 2017 as amended.
Second motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Good. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Hager?
Aye.
Mr. Zine?
Aye.
Mr. Halpin?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye. Now, before we get going with the business of the consideration of cases, Paul, would you help us with the? We had some difficulty in the notification for this meeting and the date of it.
So I can explain if you'd
Yep.
like.
Yes, please.
We were notified last Friday by someone receiving our notice in the mail. We notify property owners within 200 feet that there was an error in our notification. Instead of the meeting saying it was tonight, June the 1st, it said it was on June the 6th. The correct notice was advertised in the paper, and the properties were all posted with the correct date. However, the notice that went to affected property owners was incorrect. So once we found that out, we sent a notice out immediately on last Friday, but that does not meet the revised code standards for notification of 10 days. So I felt that that would be enough, but under advisement from our law director, she has recommended that we open the cases tonight, have the public hearing, but not close them, continue them until we can give 10 days notification again to affected property owners. That 10 days would fall within the week of June the 12th if we send notices out tomorrow, which is June the 2nd. So the first question, I guess, tonight is to the board. Is there availability? Do we have a quorum from the board for that week, preferably on June the 12th, so that we aren't inconveniencing the applicants anymore? If you could...
And the space is available. We know that the space is available.
We know the space is available on the 12th.
I will not be here, I will be out of town
That whole week, or just the 12th?
that week.
That whole week.
Well, the 12th, 13th, 14th. I'm available the 15th, 2 weeks from today.
What about anyone
Others?
else?
I'm good.
I'm good.
You're
12th, I might have a conflict depending on how late we run. If it's an hour or so, hour and a half, I can manage. Any longer than that, then I'll need to leave.
You can at least start at 5:30 then?
Yes.
Okay. And I assume that it's 5:30 that
It
we
would
should...
be 5:30.
Okay. And I'm here on the 12th, so we
Okay.
would miss Mr. Haber, and as long as we keep the meeting brisk, we've got 4 of us here anyhow.
So what that means tonight is that we'll open the cases, we'll have the public hearing, but we'll have to continue them and not close the meeting. This will allow for opportunity for, on the 12th, if anyone else, any other affected property owner would like to give testimony, and then the meetings would be potentially closed that night if the board so wishes, and hopefully a decision could be made on the 12th. Again, I apologize for the mistake and oversight, but we want to make sure that due process is followed.
Now we understand. The question then is, should we take a straw vote here tonight? And I think we should, and potentially change that vote in your absence if there's new testimony on the 12th.
We can't take we would have to keep the case open, so we wouldn't be able to take a straw vote.
He wants to keep the case open so there's no straw vote.
There won't be a straw vote.
So you don't close the hearing, you don't go into, our executive session, so to speak, and then determine the straw vote. That won't happen until
So we'll just
the next meeting.
have the public hearing tonight and testimony, and then just continue the case. And then if there is anyone else that wants to present new testimony on the 12th, then they would be allowed to do so. If there's no one here to present any new information, then we could close the case at that time.
Okay? So tonight's meeting ought to be fairly quick then, as well. Should be. Do we understand? And so we are on the 12th at 5:30. Okay? Does everyone here understand what we just said, though, as far as procedures go?
No decision will be rendered until the 12th.
Correct.
That's correct. And the reason for it is sufficient legal notice.
Will be required to extend again on the 12th.
No.
No.
Okay.
We'll only take new testimony on the 12th, so we won't need repeat testimony from tonight. It'll just be continued, any new testimony or anyone that felt that they didn't receive due process or due notification.
Do we want to caveat that, though, if the appellant wants to rebut any testimony, they should be
They
present?
can, yes, it'll be open.
But it's not absolutely necessary. Your choice.
Will the panel on the 12th then be recorded and posted so that the decision will be available for everybody?
Well, our meetings are recorded via ACTV, so they're always available. We don't necessarily post the resolutions and decisions of the board, but feel free to contact our office. We can share that with you.
Everyone okay then? No further questions? Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. So when does the 30-day clock start ticking? Is that
Once a
after the
decision is
decision's
rendered.
made, or is that the first public
No, it's after a decision is made.
Okay, that's good, thanks.
Okay. You ready to move ahead? Then the first case is the consideration of case 15-2017 BZA. Would the staff please present their...
Let me introduce Sarah Donovan. I don't know if you all have met Sarah before. She has been at a previous Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, but Sarah is our new planner one who will be staff to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So she is going to make two of the presentations tonight. We're tag teaming tonight.
Welcome.
So the first case for consideration tonight is case 15-2017 BZA. The applicant is Michael and Angela Rose. They are the property owners of 2398 Edgemere Court. This zoning is A2 residence, and they are requesting a variance from Article 5.2A7 to locate an accessory building in the front yard of the property. So this is the property map. As you can see, they have frontage on both Edgemere Court and Hunley. So where they're trying to locate the shed would be the frontage, the considered frontage on Hunley. There's already an existing 6-foot property or privacy fence on the back edge, and then so you can see in this image back here is where the privacy fence is currently located. In their drawing, their shed is proposed to be in that back corner. So this is a picture of the front of the house on Edgemere Court. This is of the back edge of their property that has proper landscaping, buffering. The other edge of their backyard. A picture showing the privacy fence and also buffering. This is a existing shed in their backyard with the privacy fence. This is a view of the rear of their home. So staff is in opinion that the variance is not substantial. The shed is going to be located behind the existing home, so it won't be visible from Edgemere Court. And due to the buffer and the privacy fence, we don't believe that it would be visible from Hunley Road either. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be changed due to the variance. The accessory structure is technically located within the front yard setback of Hunley Road, but as I stated before, it wouldn't be visible. And then spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Are there any questions?
I have one question. The surrounding properties, while they are under the same technical restrictions that they have frontage on Hunley Road, the property to the left, as you're looking at the case in question, that property right there, the red brick to the left there, has a great deal of frontage on Hunley Road, but has the same privacy fence, the vegetation break there, but clearly is treated as a backyard. But they would technically fall under the same restrictions if they were asking to put in an accessory structure. Okay? Yep. I understand the technicality. Thank you. No other questions from staff?
I just want clarification too, that privacy fence along Hunley Road, we could not find in our records when that was permitted. So we're guessing that it was put in when the subdivision was put in, because today, that would also not be allowed along a frontage of a street, the privacy fence, because it would need to be 4 foot, 75% open.
Mhm.
So we feel that, because it's consistent along Hunley, we feel that it was put in with the subdivision, that was approved through the subdivision process. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that was written in your report, and it looked that way when I walked through the property. It was a consistent fence across all properties. Any further questions of staff? Okay. Would the appellant please come forward and present its case?
Hello, my name is Michael Rose. I live at 2398 Edgemere Court. That is my home pictured above there. And I'm not entirely sure, Sarah has done an excellent job of essentially describing exactly what I intend to do. The only thing I might add to that is, in one of the pictures you'll see there's a shed in the other corner, and a great effort was gone through by the previous owner to make it look just like the house. The shingles are the same color, it has the same color shutters, same color paint. My intent is to do the exact same thing with this new structure, so that it matches the property, it's consistent, it wouldn't simply be a shed that I would purchase from Lowe's. Is there other information I need to provide?
Questions from the appellant? I do have one question, sir.
Yes.
We do understand that you want to build it similar to this shed, but there are no plans submitted with the application. What's the height, what's the planned height that could be visible over the vegetation?
In the design that we've come up with at the very peak, that would probably be about 14 feet of the A-frame.
14 feet, and so it is significantly taller than that one, than the existing one.
Correct. I'm not entirely sure what the height of that is, but it's definitely not as tall as.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that it's in the 8 to 10 range.
Right, yeah, 10,
10.
something like that.
Okay?
So when you say storage loft, is that just up in the roof rafters?
Yes,
So there's no second floor?
absolutely not.
Okay.
No other questions of this applicant? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of granting this variance? Seeing none, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this variance? Seeing none. Any other questions from the board? In keeping with our new procedures for the evening, we will not close the public hearing. We will continue it, but we will not take any further testimony on that case tonight. Moving on to the second case, number 16, 2017 BZA. Would the staff present their report?
Thank you. The location of this case is at 4150 Round Bottom Road. The zoning there is E retail, and the request is a variance from two sections in the parking article, Article 5.3 D1, D, and D2H. And this is in connection with constructing an addition and renovating and adding on to their parking area. This is for La Soup. This is the property map. And just due to the orientation of Round Bottom Road, we'll say this is to the south, although it's somewhat angled. So for purposes of the surrounding zoning, this property is zoned E. To the south, below this, there is an A zoning district, which is single family. And then to the east is industrial development district. And then to the west, there's H Riverfront. But there is according to the auditor, there's a two-family to the north, which is in this structure here. I'm not sure that is a two-family, but according to the auditor, there's a two-family. There is a single-family to the south. These properties are single-family, although they are zoned for retail use. And then to the north here, these are zoned ID, which is Industrial Development District. This is Round Bottom Road, and then this is YMCA Road. So this is the existing building, and the proposal again is to do an expansion, which would be, the existing building is almost 1,200 square feet. The proposed addition would be a little over 1,500 square feet. And according to our parking article, when an existing building is expanded by more than 50%, the entire property must come into compliance with the parking regulations. And there are several non-conforming aspects of this property. The property has been around for a while, and the parking lot is not conforming to our current parking regulations. So we'll go through the proposed site plan and identify the areas that are not in compliance. This is just a topography map. As you can see, the site is pretty flat. So this is the site plan and floor plans of the proposed addition. Again, Round Bottom Road, this is the existing building, and then the proposed addition would be to the right of the main, the existing building. Currently, there's one continuous curb cut across the front of the property, so the applicants are proposing to relocate their parking to the right, which would be to the side and to the rear of the property. This area of the parking lot is in compliance with the parking standards. The parking stall dimensions are correct. They are proposing landscaping along the perimeter of the parking area, as well as landscaping along Round Bottom Road in this particular area. The applicants are proposing to leave the paved area in front of the building, stripe a sidewalk, which is a zoning requirement, a sidewalk across the frontage, and then install a new sidewalk here. So the two areas that remain out of compliance with parking regulations are a 10-foot streetscape buffer along the front, as well as the continuous curb cut across the front. The applicants are proposing to stripe the property as no parking, but the continuous curb would remain. So these are just some of the site photos. This is looking generally north on Round Bottom Road at the side of the building, and essentially this is the area that is at issue tonight, and the applicant is requesting a variance. This parking would remain and be expanded and be compliant. It's additional photos of the site to the side. This is standing in the rear of where the proposed parking is, looking out at Round Bottom Road. And then this is just looking at the area where the new parking lot would go. Same vantage point. Just a little bit of the history. Again, the property was built in 1973. Our current parking regulations date to 2004. So the requirements for the streetscape buffer, the sidewalk, and that sort of thing, that is the area that would be non-compliant. So staff's recommendation is to deny the variances. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is substantial. Although the parking area is being located to the side and the rear of the building, we still have concerns with the continuous curb cut just being striped, not only for aesthetic purposes, but for safety purposes. The idea of a single point of access off of the roadway into your parking area has been proven to be a safer situation than having one continuous curb cut, especially on a county roadway. The character of the neighborhood may or may not be altered if the property is left as is. There are several non-conforming parking lots in the immediate vicinity. However, as properties improve, expand, staff feels that that is the time to bring the property into compliance. Variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services per se, except it could be argued that it would improve the safety along Round Bottom Road in that particular area. Can the property owner's predicament be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance? Staff is of the opinion that the asphalt could be removed and the sidewalk remain. And then the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement may not be observed if left as is. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions of staff?
I was wondering, by what you're saying is that, like in the front here, in this picture here, what you're suggesting is that they should actually take out some of that asphalt to make that sidewalk, obvious sidewalk, thereby keeping trucks from pulling in and making deliveries. In the front, there would be an entrance in the front, so possibility of deliveries could take place, so a tractor trailer could, as it stands now, pull in there and offload merchandise. Is that what the problem is?
I think the architect could answer the questions as far as where the new doors and entrances are going to be. But yes, our concern is that by just simply striping this area, that would not eliminate customers or delivery people from parking in front of that.
Okay.
Even though it's striped, that it still wouldn't deter that area from being used.
So what would the suggestion be that would make that agreeable?
I mean, staff suggests that it needs to be removed, the asphalt needs to be removed, and implement that 10-foot streetscape buffer area.
Okay. That's all for me.
Other questions of staff? I have a couple, Paul. The genesis of this was that the applicant really wanted to add space to the building, and by our zoning resolution, that Article 5.3A3, I think, is really 5.3B3. I couldn't find in A. That's the part that states that if it's a significant expansion, then everything has to come into compliance with the zoning resolution. The rest of the parking area then was created by the township requirement to come into compliance.
That is correct.
Okay.
There was an effort on the property owner to create a safer parking area and bring as much of the non-conforming aspects of this parking into compliance, but we're still left with 2 outstanding items.
And that new parking is in compliance. I was wondering about the 30-foot setback required before the first parking space.
That is.
But it's there? It's okay?
It is.
Okay. I also noticed when I toured the property some overhead power lines that are probably going to come right over the building addition. That's not a zoning issue, that's a building and construction requirement, though. That we
Even the
can.
architect could probably speak to that.
Okay. But we're not looking at it from a zoning standpoint, though, right? Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, would the appellant please come forward and present its case?
I think it's these.
There's one that's right over the parked cars, and
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with Le Soup and the organization. The owner is here and can speak to any details you'd like to know about the organization, what they do, and all that sort of thing. But
did we get your name?
Oh, my name is Paul Fry. I'm the architect. Sorry. But in the briefest description I can give you, Le Soup is a small nonprofit organization that takes in vegetables, meats, whatever, from restaurants, surplus from grocery stores, whatever, makes soup, distributes it to less fortunate people. They also have a program where they go out and teach people how to make soup, teach kids. They go into like Lower Price Hill and literally teach classes. They bring crock pots with them, teach the kids how to make the soup and give them the crock pot. So it's not only a give a man a fish, it's also teach him how to fish. So, but anyway, what they have grown into is a situation where they need some storage space primarily, as well as some other space, just because their operation has been as successful as it has been. And what we're trying to do essentially is slightly more than double the space, but what that does is, as has been stated, it brings into play the entire zoning code. So there are, as you all know, a number of issues that we're faced with that do not comply as it stands today. All of those things that we mentioned, and I'll talk briefly about those, but those issues present, no question about it, present a hardship for the owner. The hardship being primarily cost. The nature of the organization is such that it's a nonprofit, so on and so forth. It's a very small organization. And what they're trying to do is maintain the operation. Everyone on staff, owners, myself, we'd all like to see the full compliance with the zoning code because there's some nice things stated in there that would make a significant property improvement. But we're dealing with some of those. And in fact, setback is one. The building is not in compliance. The existing building is not in compliance, so the addition is setback. The parking is not in compliance, so we're trying to dissuade people from parking in the front area, building a parking lot that is far enough setback. The parking lot is used sort of sporadically, and what we would do if we didn't have the zoning issues to deal with, we probably would go ahead and make it just gravel because it's where it is, for one thing, and secondly, the sporadic use of it, for us, it'd be better if it was gravel, it would drain better. But we didn't do that. We're paving it because the code requires it. We are using parking blocks, stops. We're setting it back from the property line, the residential property line, and putting in the landscape buffer. There are dimensional requirements in the parking lot. We're complying with all of those. We're putting in a dumpster enclosure. There's not one there now. And it is kind of an eyesore, but it's also a zoning requirement. We've moved the dumpster to the back of the building and put an enclosure around it. We have done what we can to improve the visual aspects of the building. I brought this along with my walking past you. I don't have a very good way to present this other than on a video screen, on the computer screen. But I'll start at this end. This is just a quick sketch up, kind of you get an idea what we're doing. At this end of the building is the existing. We'll put a little tower thing in the middle, it creates an entrance, and the rest of the building will be similar to what's there now. So it gives you a quick idea of what it's going to look like. And to my way of thinking, we're not building $1 million building here, but we are trying to improve the facility, both visually and functionally, and I think that does that. It's a low-budget project, but it still is, I think, an improvement over what's there. So the issue here, the real issue for us is cost. Did some quick checking, and in order to pull that 10-foot strip out, excavated far enough to get the base for that exists under the asphalt out, backfill it with topsoil, and I didn't even include planting. We're order of magnitude $30,000. Then, in addition to that, that's only one of the issues. That's the buffer strip. The other issue is the curb. What the code would require is, again, that out at the, I guess at the right-of-way line, or maybe further beyond the right-of-way line, somewhere we excavate a strip wide enough to get a curb in there. The curb would have to go down about a foot, and so we'd have to cut a trench, form and pour a curb, backfill along both sides of the curb, and patch the asphalt back in on both sides of the curb. Again, another expense of order of magnitude, it's $10,000. So between those two items, we're talking $40,000, and that does not include any landscape material, any planting of any kind. That's a significant amount of money for this operation and the ownership, such as it is. In addition to that, not that it has anything to do with zoning, but in addition to that, we're running into issues with the septic system that's in place right now, and faced with a significant cost there. We're going to have to probably replace it, or at least significantly modify it. Another cost that we wish we didn't have, but trying to raise the funding for that and get it done. So we're struggling with monetary issues all the way around in more ways than just the zoning issues, and that's, if we could accomplish this, it would be a significant help. So, so with that, I think you understand what the issues are and what we're faced with in terms of costs and so forth. And I hope you realize we're trying to, excuse me, comply with what we can in a reasonable fashion, do some of the things that we feel would have a bigger impact. One other note that I will make is that I did talk to the Hamilton County engineer, traffic engineering, and I have I don't know if Paul included it in your packets or not, but I have an email from the Hamilton County engineer that said the only thing they will require is striping. That nobody likes the idea that we can pull in anywhere off the street, but they will not require that we put a curb in. So anyway, with that, any questions?
Could you put those little concrete things in there? Like you do, you know, the bumpers that you use when you park at a parking lot? Could you put those in there to kind of...
Well, I suppose we could.
I don't know if that would be acceptable or not, but that would seem to at least keep people from trying to pull in.
Keep people from driving over the...
Yeah, it would be an inconvenience to drive over at least.
Some would still drive over.
Yeah.
What's the total cost of the project?
Of the project? To be determined. We're thinking that it's order of magnitude $250,000, somewhere in that range.
That's without the streetscape
Yes.
issues?
Yes. Well, actually, let me back up. That's without the landscaping around the parking lot as well. So we have a cost on the building itself. What we don't have is a cost on the paving, and there's significant additional paving as a result of the zoning issues. We don't have the paving, we don't have the striping, and we don't have the landscape around the parking area. So those items are missing from our building construction cost was order of magnitude 175, and I'm throwing in another 75 for, and the other cost that's not in there is that septic issue that septic system issue that I mentioned.
Other issues or other questions for the appellant?
Mr. Hayes, can you clarify on that entryway? On your diagram or on your site plan, I guess it appeared that it was just a concrete slab and not necessarily have an overhang, because that encroaches into the front yard setback as well. I guess it wasn't clear on your plan of whether that was part of the existing building or... So this is new construction? And this, if it has an overhang, this would actually need a variance as well. So it's something that the board should consider as well.
But it's open structure.
It does have a roof, though. Okay.
But the question there, Paul, is that it is extending further into the already non-compliant setback, is that
Right, I'm
correct?
measuring about 17 feet to the right-of-way, somewhere in that nature. So, being that this is going to be left open and we're going to re-notify anyway, that is something that will need to be, a variance that's going to need to be considered as well.
You're saying,
Am I?
you're saying that
Yes.
structure is,
Mhm.
but it certainly isn't 3 feet beyond what's there.
Right, but with it being a new addition, that's what I'm measuring, about 17 feet to the right-of-way. But you can clarify that if you...
Encroachment on this frontage.
Okay.
What do you think about that? what do you call those bumpers? Putting bumpers along there as opposed to stripes.
Other questions of the appellant?
I will state that Mrs. DeYoung is here. She is the property owner and the business owner. If you have questions or would like to know more about it. She doesn't necessarily need to speak unless you'd like to.
Hi, how are you?
It's just, we want
Well,
to stay.
hold on a second, ma'am. We'll get you up here and then get your name and formally do this. But a further question for you, sir, is that some possible considerations is is put some bumpers along, the parking bumpers along the line of right-of-way. Have you considered, the property across the street has a guardrail? Not very visually appealing, but there is a guardrail there along the entire frontage along Round Bottom Road. Have you considered that as a less expensive alternative? And I'm not sure whether it's acceptable to staff.
Well,
I think it would, are you talking about on the right-of-way line?
On the right-of-way line. I'm thinking of safety. With the close setback, our primary concern here is not just the technicality of the curb, continuous curb cut, but safety. And the guardrail would certainly improve safety without doing anything at all for aesthetics, unfortunately.
yeah, I'm looking at that photograph up there on the wall, and I see the guardrail you're talking about. I'm 85% sure that guardrail's in the right-of-way. The right-of-way line, that line right there, that line right there is the right-of-way.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how close it is to the building.
Yes.
I mean, could we do that? Yes, we could do that. It certainly would be significantly less cost, I would think, although I have no idea what a guardrail costs. It would be less cost, but it would also be less attractive. So, safety, yes, it would probably address that, or at least part of it.
It'd probably be the most safe of all of the different options that we've talked
Absolutely.
about here this evening. But what's staff's opinion on that one?
I don't think it'll eliminate people trying to park between the roadway and the guardrail. There still leaves about 20 feet from the edge of pavement to the right-of-way line. And I think there would need to be input from the county engineer or whether they would permit that to be there.
I'm sure they'd have something to say about it, yes.
Yeah, because it in of itself could be a hazard that close to the road.
I'm fairly certain across the street there's a creek.
There's a drainage
Or at
ditch.
least a drainage ditch.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions of this appellant?
Can you
John?
clarify, off to the right or the south, you have a new 5-foot sidewalk? Is that a concrete sidewalk? That's,
But the only reason we put it there is because there's no paving there to take out or any of that kind of thing. It's grass. So, it's a small portion, but it's a portion that we can accommodate.
and then, have you also considered just taking out enough asphalt to put in a new sidewalk and then possibly putting planters and things, pots or something to keep people from parking on the other side of the sidewalk? So just cutting out a strip of asphalt to do maybe like a raised concrete sidewalk and then putting in.
The answer to your question on the planters is we've not thought about it. It's not a bad idea. It's a maintenance issue, but, it's
I'm just thinking
an
if,
economical solution.
Yeah, even outside of planters, you can even aesthetically pleasing concrete piers. A lot of storefronts will have those large concrete piers on there. They don't look that unappealing, but at the same time, too, they provide a buffer to prevent people from entering that area.
Yeah, I was just thinking if it's a new visual sidewalk and that's kind of a break line for the parking lot and then potentially some other element to keep people from driving over it,
Yeah.
so.
Paul can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the zoning code does not say the parking, or the sidewalk has to be a raised concrete sidewalk. It just says it has to be a sidewalk. That in mind, we could literally strike the asphalt which was our intent, and with a 5-foot strip, and call that the sidewalk.
Well, that's what you're proposing, I think, right?
Yes, that's basically what we're proposing. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking this would be a differentiating concrete sidewalk that you would cut into the asphalt.
Right. And what we're trying to do is avoid, as I said earlier, avoid cutting the asphalt,
Right.
digging out the base, pouring the concrete, or putting a planer in for the... One thing that you're suggesting that I would say is that if we did do that and raise the sidewalk up, it would keep people from driving into the property, depending on where the sidewalk is.
I thought that's what the suggestion included, was it
Yeah, that's
raised,
what it is.
and that's a deterrent for people pulling in.
Maybe that is what you were suggesting.
It's essentially the same as a curb. It's raised. Okay, any other questions of the appellant?
I know we're not going into testimony tonight in a closed hearing, but I did want to say that I was concurring with your comments regarding, and staff's comments regarding safety, and that is a concern with that whole front curb cut there. And I think there are, and it's probably not our job necessarily to design it for you, but there's probably some good cost-effective ways, whether it's guardrail or something, to cordon off that area as opposed to just painting it. I mean, we understand the hardship of cost and whatnot, but from my point of view, and I'm saying this because I'm not going to be here, and I apologize for that, but I think some creative solutions that can be very cost-effective would be very worthwhile to differentiate, whether it's whether you take out the sidewalk and put in a new concrete sidewalk that's raised or something, but as staff has alluded to the safety issue of it, that there is a physical deterrent there of some sort. Planters,
Right.
guardrail, concrete pylons, piers, bollards, or whatever, that would help mitigate the concern of traffic going on there. So I
Yeah.
wanted to concur with what I thought was the direction of your comments.
And if I can piggyback on that for just a second, one of the issues I believe is that the code required a curb. And the other component of that is I don't know if the code would even allow bollards, for example, bollards with chain stretched across them. I don't know if it would work or not. That's a solution. Guardrail, is that legal zoning-wise?
Yeah, I think to clarify this discussion, you're asking for a variance and saying, I'll try to comply by painting things on the surface. And the sense that I'm getting from the board, we haven't really worked it any further than the comments that you've heard, is that we are concerned about the safety and the isolation there. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to be considering some kind of a variance. The question is, how much in compliance with the code can we get at reasonable cost to satisfy the safety issue?
And my earlier argument was that there are a number of issues that the zoning code has required, and we've complied with many of them. Not all of them, but many of them. So that's why we're asking for some relief on this issue. The other thing, just real quickly to your point, is to my way of thinking, if we're going to put a curb in, we combine the curb and the sidewalk somehow in conjunction with one another, and maybe raise it up to, as you were saying, maybe raise it up, just use that as a curb. Maybe we kill two birds with one stone in that regard. But the other issue is still that's still out there is taking up another 10-foot strip of asphalt, digging out the base, putting topsoil in, and calling it a buffer strip. So, you know, I don't know how to tie that in, and if we could do that economically, we'd probably go for it. But, and if we had the money, we definitely would go for it, because we'd like to improve the visual aspects of the, you know, give it a little more curb appeal as well, so.
Okay? I think we're trying to find a
Right.
good solution for everyone. Any other questions for the appellant?
I'm just curious, you talked about your budget, but how much of that have you actually raised as far as, you said you had a $250,000 building budget, but I'm just curious how much you've actually raised as far as 130? 230, okay.
Almost there.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for your time.
Ma'am, would you like to come forward and give testimony? I don't remember that you were sworn in. Were you sworn in? You need to do that now. Would you please raise your right hand and swear or affirm, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am. State your name and
My name's Susie DeYoung, Susie Adrian, back in the day. I knew John growing up. So, you know, the space itself, I just want to say I started this, I live in South Milford, so obviously a lot of people say, like, why the heck did you pick that location? It's just such an odd little location, and it's 3 miles from my house, is why I chose that silly little location. And we want to stay where we are. I mean, we took a volunteer vote, primarily meaning that most of our staff is volunteer-based, and we've had options out there to move the location. We have you know, we're obviously looking at, is it cheaper to just pick up and move? Is it cheaper to add on? Is there a combination somewhere in between? And for me, my biggest concern is my staff, and that is my volunteer base. And most of them are coming out of Marymount, Madeira, Indian Hill. You know, they're not feeling the love if they have to drive downtown or to the west side and some of the other options that have been, you know, given to us or presented to us. We want to stay where we are, but again, it all comes down to the money, what makes the most sense. We definitely are out of space. Today, I think we were at 2,800 pounds of food came through the front door there, all rescued, all and gone. You know, seemingly 4 hours later, we don't have any of it left. So you know, we've got a great system of the volunteers coming in, loading it up, and taking it to the various shelters, schools, after school facilities. You know, we're 48 partnering agencies. This summer, we're feeding upwards of 5,000 kids a week, all out of that building. So we're obviously and praying that we can get this done and get it done under the budget that we have. We're raising the money. We're doing fine with that. I mean, I think in 6 months' time to say you can pull into $230,000 was no small feat, but people are looking at the way that we were approaching hunger and food waste. We've had a lot of national attention. Not that that matters to anybody, but I'm just saying it's a great project, and you know, if we can show that this model works, we'd like to see it go nationwide, and I'd like to say that we did it, you know, 3 miles from my house. I really don't want to start driving to the west side at this point in my life, but that's why we're there. And P.S., I've been there now 4 years. I guess it's been 4 years. And I'm more worried about the crack and the heroin that gets dealt in my parking lot than the people driving in. The people driving in and dealing in the parking lot are cray-cray. This is our issue right now, and the sheriffs are down there literally every day with us. We call every day and try to push them to somebody else's problem. But if anything is a problem from what we see, it's YMCA's, the activity going across the street, for what it's worth. That's not your issue, but it's, you know, of safety concern, that's our big safety concern right now. So, that's it. Thanks, guys.
You asked, or you answered a question, but before you were on the microphone. Can you answer that question again, that you've raised
230,000.
of the, in the neighborhood of 250 to 300 kind of a price tag on the project?
Right. So we're close.
Any
Just,
questions of this?
As a side note, the soup, I'm sure, is top-quality soup. Susie's father was Pierre Adrian, and he was the chef at Masonette, La Masonette downtown before it closed.
I got a
Back in the
genetic
day.
disorder. My grandparents, my dad, myself, we've all got the disease, but, and I had Madeira was my central location for 25-plus years. I had a catering company up there and sold it to my sister, who's my business partner up there, so that I could fund this project to see if, I can use my talent to try to just simply feed people and quit throwing it in the landfill, which if you saw today's product, you would have been doing like everybody else. Like, it makes you crazy.
So Susie, can you understand our concern with regard to the frontage?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I get it. I just, I don't want to say pick your battle, pick your war, but our war right now is the drug dealing. I mean, that's our war, and I had one OD in the parking lot the other day, and I've got my kids working down there, so for me, I feel totally safe, and I can't imagine anybody wanting to walk on Round Bottom. Why would anybody want a sidewalk there? It's crazy. I mean, the trucks are driving 75 miles an hour down that road, So I keep thinking, do we want to encourage by putting a sidewalk in, that people walk on that? It's bad enough that the cyclists are on there, and I'm a cyclist. That's why I took the location, so I could ride my bike to work. Well, that stopped real quick. Not going to do it, not with the Evans trucks, so.
And the parking lot that you're referring to is the one that is open right in front?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
closing
I
it
just,
off would be a good thing somehow, some way.
It's what?
Closing it off would be a good thing all the way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't see it, I just laugh when I see people walking. There's a woman, Fred, the guy that lives across the street, and his wife walks those kids down to the ball fields on Round Bottom, pushing that stroller, and I'm just like, you wave goodbye and say, nice knowing you. Like, what are the chances they're going to be able to keep doing this on Round Bottom? But, so to put sidewalks in, I don't really get it. That's my point, but you guys have your job. I've got my job, so just.
Understand? Any further questions, though, or amplifications?
Come for soup. Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for what you do.
And we would never say no soup for you.
Thank you for what you do. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this proposal? Seeing none, does anyone wish to speak against it? Okay. In the same procedure as the first case, we will continue this case until the 12th and move on to the next one. The staff present the case for case 17, 2017.
Case 17, 2017 is located at 7621 Forest Road. It is being proposed by Matthew Klein, who's the property owner, and Jonathan Wood of Wood Architects. It's zoned B, and they are requesting a variance to allow a second-story addition on a non-conforming home. So, as you can see, this house sits back off of Forest Road, and the addition, the residence to the south is also zone B. To the south is O planned office. To the east is also B residents that are along Forest, and to the west is O planned office, which is along Jagger Court. So this aerial shows the outline of the property and how close it is to Jagger Court. So looking at the site plan, you can see the outline of the home with the highlighted in yellow is where the addition, the second-story addition is going to take place. So right now, this house is located with a setback of 31 feet and 8 inches. However, 35 is required in the B zone. So the footprint of the house is not going to change with this addition. So up in the right-hand corner is the elevation of the house, where you can see that the roof line is not changing and it is just extending out over the existing house. This is just a floor plan. This picture is of the front of the property. This is of the current kind of side of the property, showing a catwalk overhang to the garage. This is the garage. This is the rear of the property. This is the rear of the property, with the left-hand side of the picture would be Jagger Court, and the right-hand side would be the backs of the homes on Forest. So staff is in the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The addition is to the rear of the house using the same peak and, as stated before, the existing roof line and the same rear yard setback as the existing home. The essential character is not substantially altered because the house sits so far back from Forest Road and is pretty well hidden by a buffer on all sides. The variance would not adversely affect delivery. The property owner's only feasible method is through this variance. The spirit and intent behind zoning would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Any questions?
So we are here because the house is non-conforming.
Correct.
And it's not that what they are proposing is non-conforming, it's that the house in its location is non-conforming, and what they're attempting to do is within the zoning code.
Correct.
Thank you.
This house, is it directly across from the high school?
No.
Down the road on the right?
Vicinity, but not,
Yeah.
it's not directly across.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? I do have one. On one of your first slides, where you showed the yellow outline of where the construction would take place. Keep going back, I think. That one.
This one.
I understood that the addition would take place to on the rear side of the current construction, and that makes it look like it's on the front side. Oh, I'm just not seeing that.
Can you see this right here is actually the front of the home.
Yes.
Where the front door is. It's kind of faded on the projector, but
So that yellow outline is in
Yellow
fact
is-
the rear roof
correct.
that is being raised, and the dormers, the existing dormers would be replaced. Yeah, okay, good, that's consistent with what I was thinking. Okay, no other questions of staff?
No.
Would the appellant please come forward and present the case?
Hello, I'm Jonathan Wood. I'm the architect for this project, and I'm here with the property owner, Matthew Klein. I feel like the zoning staff gave a pretty good summary of what we're trying to do with this project, and we agree with their findings that it's not a big change to or a substantial variance that we're requesting. Basically, what we want to do is utilize some attic space that's there right now for an additional 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. And that's basically what we're trying to do, and work within the existing footprint of the house that's there. So basically, I'd like to, have myself available here if you guys have any questions about the project.
Any questions? I do have one, is I noted the heavy vegetation line along the property line, that even though it's non-conforming in terms of the setback from that rear property line, is your plan to keep that vegetation the way it is?
It's to my knowledge, yes. I think that's there. I don't have any knowledge about removing any of that vegetation back there. So that might be a good question for the property owner.
Okay. No other questions for the architect?
No.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you, sir. The property owner, care to come forward and present further the case?
Okay. My name is Matthew Klein. I own the property. I bought it in March, and working hard every day to make it a viable place to live. Do you have any questions?
What's your plan for that vegetation line along the back property line?
Well, I've been in communication with Town Property and working cooperatively with them, and they have trimmed a lot of their trees and things because there's a fence there. It's not just, vegetation. It's my fence, and their vegetation was kind of hurting it. So we worked it out. They cut it back. My plan is to cut it back a little bit, but not that much. The nice thing about this property is it's pretty isolated. I know it's on Forest Road where the high school is, but you can't see Forest Road. And when you're on Forest Road, you really can't see this property at all. The driveway's 300 feet long. So you go back that driveway and you've got over an acre of property that's very irregular, okay? But I'll tell you, if we can fix up the house, it will be a great purchase for a family that has kids and pets, and they'll love it.
Okay, your plan is to cut the vegetation a little bit, but essentially keep it there for isolation.
The vegetation's been growing for 2 years along the property line on all sides, okay? And we've cut it back just from a manageable point of view, but we're going to do some serious landscaping there. And so, yeah, I would tell you honestly, the vegetation will be cut back, but not to the extent where we expose views from outside the property into the property, if that makes sense. Okay? We'd like to keep it isolated. I think any owner that buys it will be buying it because they like being in an acquired environment with privacy. And so that's what our intent is.
So you would be comfortable with a condition that some vegetation separation there remains?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone that would wish to speak in support of granting this variance? Yes, sir? Please.
I'm here to speak either way on it. Just have a couple of questions. I don't need to be sworn in.
You don't need to be sworn in?
He does.
You do need to be sworn in.
My name is Tony DiPuccio. I'm at 7625 Forest Road. That's property directly to the east and, directly to the east.
You're raising your right hand. Do you swear do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Maybe a comment, start off. You talked about the vegetation, and this is more information on anything else. Town Properties, as I recall, is the property manager for that office condominium complex. I think there may be a requirement that they maintain certain vegetation along that area. It was part of the original zone change that they did on it. So I know you guys didn't do that. That was done under the county system, but you may be able to track down that information. So that may partly address the concerns about the level of vegetation that you want to have maintained there. A couple of questions I guess I did have were, So as I looked at that, there's an attached garage, and the rear of that attached garage looks like it's closer to the back property line? Okay. So, okay, that just clarifies that for me. This next question I have maybe sound a little strange, but I have a history with this property. Do you know whether that property, whether the public was ever hooked up to a sewer? And here's the story behind that. This is way before Mr. Klein bought the property, is it was on a septic system, and it had horrendous problems, and I kept complaining to the Board of Health. Board of Health, it finally got resolved, but I was never told how it got resolved. So, and that's just more of a concern since he wants to expand into 2 bedrooms and a bath. The other side of that is I'll be surprised if it wasn't, but that property is 300 feet off of the Forest Road, and I gotta believe that the sewer is probably not, it might be at Forest Road, maybe deep enough for it to tie in, but I doubt it. So anyway, that's a question I have on it. And let me see if I had one other question. Oh, how is the distance from the back property line to the existing house determined to be 31 feet and 8 inches? That's a pretty exact measurement.
Staff, answer that one?
Do you want me to answer, or let him provide his testimony and then have rebuttal?
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious, that's pretty exact unless you had a surveyor come out.
Do you have other questions, though, or comments or thoughts?
Not at this
or-
time. I want to do a little bit more research myself, and generally, I'm sitting here saying I don't see anything significant in terms of objecting to, but I do want to. I'll be back on June 12th?
12th.
Yep.
June 12th.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Staff, can you comment on the precise measurements?
Those were provided by the applicant.
They're on the architectural drawings, and I would suggest we get the architect to testify to the origination.
The one thing I would like to clarify, and Mr. Haber asked this at the beginning of this case, with the use of the property is permitted use. It's a single-family home in a single-family zoning district. The setbacks are non-conforming. In these situations, if a structure has a non-conforming setback similar to La Soup wants to expand, the township requires the addition to meet the current setback. If it doesn't meet the current setback, then a variance is requested. Mr. DiPuccio is correct, the garage is closer to the rear property line than the actual where the addition. We are going with that dimension, though, because that's where the addition is going. Just to clarify, but I would defer to the applicant on the other questions.
And further clarification, the garage is not an issue because it's not being modified. Even though it is non-compliant, it just stays
Correct.
non-compliant.
The house was built in 1941, I believe. County zoning was adopted in 1948, and township zoning took over in 1988.
Mhm.
As far as the sewerage is concerned, I would expect that the landowner would know. Are you tapped into a sewer line on Forest? No septic system then. But in 41, I'm sure there was.
I don't know.
I'll bet there was.
I believe you.
This was farmland then.
Yeah.
Would the architect care to come forward and comment on the measurement?
The measurement is, basically, if you look at the drawing that I sent you guys, it's a plus or minus kind of measurement. It's not from a survey. It's geared, measured from your Cages map and the measuring tools in Cages, because we're not really expanding outside of, the current footprint of the house. That's why, we're working from those dimensions. So that's where the measurement comes from. And you can, if you go and measure on Cages, it comes up to about 30, foot something, 31 foot 8, so.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any further questions of staff for any further questions, any further information that you need right now? Okay. Seeing none, I did not ask, you stepped forward when I asked for people in favor. Anyone wish to speak against granting the variance? Okay, seeing none, and we have no further questions, then we will continue this case until June 12th at 5:30. Then at this point, we have further work to do that was from past work, and we will close the public side of the meeting at this time and go into debate on past work. You're welcome to stay. It's still part of a public meeting, but there is no further public testimony tonight. And we would normally go into a discussion of cases. We will not do that since all of the cases here tonight are continued, but we will go to item 7 on the agenda, which is the journalization of case 11-2017. I had asked staff to consider some additional wording on the journalization proposal, and I wanted to do that before the meeting, just in case there was any concerns about having our attorney review those changes. And so that's why I did it, and in compliance with our normal procedures, I did not copy any of you, because we shouldn't be communicating that way. But staff did listen to my comments. The comments were on paragraph E, we added the term compliant. That was not on the original draft. And we also added that paragraph in yellow on the first page. And that wording is from our attorney. That gets across the concept that I was worried about, is that we heard no negative testimony at all on this case this time, and we heard nothing but negative testimony the first time that we heard it 6 months prior. And I wanted to make sure that that was in the formal record, that the dealings with the neighbors was completely different this time, even though Mr. Osterfeld chastised us for not making the right decision the first time. This is the real reason why we changed the final outcome on this, and I think this wording is fine. But that's the reason behind the changes there. Other than that, have you all had a chance to go through it?
Mm-hmm. Just have one edit in E, the first, in the bold language there, complaint, should change to compliant.
I think we can do that without legal review. IA versus AI. Complaint.
Eagle eye. There were some complaints about our decision.
Yep, right there. Back more. Oh. That's got it. Any other changes? The yellow highlighting is removed from the second paragraph, right, Sarah?
Can you go up to that?
Great.
Okay, because in this copy, it has quotation marks at the beginning and the end of the paragraph, so I think it's appropriate that they be removed.
and they are already gone.
Yep.
Good. Any other changes?
Mr. Chairman, regarding case 11-2017 BZA, I move that we approve and journal the case.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all.
Will be adjourned.
Is it June 12th?